My aunt tried to sue me for stealing my grandmother's jewelry. In court, she cried I was supposed to inherit it. I quietly handed the judge the jewelry appraisal form signed by my grandmother, naming me as the owner. Her lawyer slumped in his chair. I never expected to be dragged into a lawsuit by my own family, but here we are. My grandmother, Nana Rose, was my favorite person in the world. She practically raised me when my parents were struggling financially, and even after things got better, I spent more time at her house than my own. She taught me how to cook, how to sew, how to find a good deal at thrift stores, and most of all, how to stand up for myself. Nana Rose wasn't rich, but she had a jewelry collection that was worth quite a bit, not just in money, but in sentimental value. Some of it had been passed down through generations, including a Tiffany & Company necklace from the 1950s, her engagement ring, and an antique sapphire brooch from her mother. She also had a few modern pieces that she treated herself to over the years. And she made it very clear to everyone that I was going to inherit her jewelry. She told me this for years, and eventually, she put it in writing. Unfortunately, not everyone in the family was happy about that. My Aunt Diane, Nana's only daughter, was one of those people. She was the kind of person who only showed up when she needed something. She never visited unless she was low on cash or needed Nana to babysit her kids. She never called to check in, never helped when Nana was sick, and never showed an ounce of genuine care. But after Nana passed away, suddenly, she acted like the most devoted daughter in the world. The will and the first signs of trouble when the will was read, everything was divided as follows. The house went to my dad, Nana's son. Her savings were split between my dad and Diane. All of the jewelry was left to me. It was simple. Fair. Nothing surprising. Diane didn't react much at first. She just sat there, tight-lipped, nodding along as if she already expected it. I should have known something was coming. The phone call a week after the funeral, my phone rang. It was Diane. I barely got a hello out before she exploded. You stole Mom's jewelry. I blinked. Stole? That was supposed to be mine, she shrieked. I took a deep breath and reminded her about the will. Nana left it to me. It's written down, legally and officially. Wrong answer. I was her daughter, she snapped. You had no right to take it. I tried to stay calm. I told her Nana had been very clear about her decision. I even reminded her that Nana had told both of us multiple times over the years. She didn't care. She went on a rant about how daughters inherit their mother's jewelry, how I was just the grandchild, and how I was taking things that weren't mine. At this point, I stopped responding and just let her scream into the void. She finally ended with, "You're going to regret this." Then she hung up. The lawsuit a few days later, I got a court summons in the mail. Diane was suing me for theft and claiming I was in illegal possession of inherited property. She was demanding that I return every single piece of jewelry. Or, if I refused, that I pay her $50,000, the estimated value of the collection. I stared at the papers in disbelief. Was she serious? I wasn't scared, I knew I had proof. But I was furious. She had never cared about Nana. She never even visited when Nana was in the hospital. But now, she wanted to act like she was entitled to everything just because she was the daughter? Fine. If she wanted a legal battle, she was getting one. I hired a lawyer. The courtroom showdown the day of the hearing arrived. I walked in with my lawyer, feeling calm but pissed. I knew I had all the evidence I needed, but I still couldn't believe we were wasting time on this. Diane was already there, sitting with her lawyer. She was dressed like she was about to win an Oscar. Full dramatic black outfit, subtle but perfectly applied makeup, and a solemn expression like she was mourning some great tragedy. Her lawyer was an older man who already looked exhausted. He clearly knew this was not a strong case, but hey, he was getting paid. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, walked in and called us to order. She asked Diane's lawyer to present their case. And that's when the performance began. Diane put on her best fake teary voice and started talking about how she was so close to her mother, how she had always assumed she'd inherit her jewelry, and how she was completely blindsided when she found out I had taken everything. She sniffled, wiped her eyes, paused for dramatic effect. Then she threw in the final dagger. It's what my mother would have wanted. I almost laughed out loud. The judge turned to me. Do you have any evidence that the jewelry was legally given to you? I nodded. I reached into my folder and pulled out the notarized jewelry appraisal form. It listed every piece in the collection. And at the bottom, my grandmother's signature, right above the statement. I, Rose Mitchell, confirm that my jewelry collection is to be inherited solely by my grandchild, OP, upon my passing. The judge took the document and read it carefully. Diane's lawyer glanced at it from across the table, and his entire posture changed. He slumped back in his chair. He knew. The explosion. Diane's face turned bright red. No, that's fake. She tricked Mom into signing it. The judge looked unimpressed. Ms. Diane, this document was signed in front of a notary. Are you suggesting the notary was also involved in fraud? Diane opened her mouth, then closed it. Her lawyer whispered something to her. Probably something like, "Stop talking before you make this worse." But she wasn't done. "But I was supposed to get it," she blurted out. "I was her daughter. It's mine." At this point, the judge sighed. I could see it in her face. She was done with Diane's nonsense. She put down the document, folded her hands, and looked Diane dead in the eye. The judge's warning in the courtroom was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking. The judge tapped her fingers against the desk and looked at Diane like a disappointed teacher about to scold an unruly student. "Ms. Diane, I need you to understand something very clearly. This document is legal. It was signed, notarized, and properly filed. There is no evidence of fraud, and your claim has no legal basis." Diane gritted her teeth. Her lawyer was already rubbing his temples, probably thinking about all the other, more respectable cases he could have been working on instead of the circus. But Diane wasn't one to accept reality. "This is wrong. It's not fair," she snapped. "She brainwashed my mother. She manipulated her into giving everything away. I don't care what some stupid paper says. That jewelry is mine." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Ms. Diane, you are dangerously close to being held in contempt. Sit down." Diane froze. For the first time, I saw something flicker across her face, hesitation, maybe even fear. She wasn't used to people shutting her down. Slowly, she sat. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought she'd accept the loss and crawl back into whatever hole she came from. I was wrong. Because Diane had one last trick up her sleeve. The fake witness, just as the judge was about to dismiss the case, Diane's lawyer cleared his throat. "Your Honor, we have a witness." I frowned. A witness? Who the hell would testify for Diane? That's when the courtroom doors swung open. And in walked a woman I hadn't seen in years. Aunt Lorraine. My grandmother's estranged younger sister. I barely recognized her. She had always been a ghost in our family, someone Nana refused to talk about. All I knew was that they had a falling out decades ago and never made up. Now, here she was. In court. On Diane's side. She took the witness stand, adjusted her cardigan, and smiled sweetly. "Your Honor," she said in a gentle, trembling voice. "I can confirm that my dear sister Rose always intended for her jewelry to go to Diane. She told me so herself." I felt my stomach drop. This was insane. Lorraine and Nana hadn't spoken in years. How would she know anything about Nana's will? I turned to my lawyer, whispering, "What the hell is this?" He just shook his head. Even he was caught off guard. The cross-examination, Diane smirked. She thought she had me cornered. The judge nodded at my lawyer, giving him the floor. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked toward Lorraine with the slow, calculated steps of a man who smelled a mile away. "Ms. Lorraine, when was the last time you spoke to your sister?" She hesitated. "Oh, well, it's been a few years. But she and I were always close, and a few years." My lawyer cut in. "Ms. Lorraine, let me be clear, did you or did you not attend your sister's funeral?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I wasn't able to make it." "You weren't able to make it." He nodded. "So, just to clarify, when exactly did she tell you about her supposed wishes regarding the jewelry?" Lorraine shifted uncomfortably. "Oh, I don't remember the exact date, but was it before or after she officially filed the jewelry appraisal form, naming my client as the sole inheritor?" Silence. A slow, creeping kind of silence. Lorraine swallowed. Diane was clenching her jaw so hard I thought her teeth might crack. The lawyer let the silence stretch before speaking again, his voice sharp. "Ms. Lorraine, I remind you that you are under oath. Did my client's grandmother personally tell you that she intended to leave the jewelry to Diane, before or after she legally documented that it belonged to OP?" Lorraine's face turned pale. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then she did what liars do best. She tried to backpedal. Well, I can't say for sure, but I just know it's what she would have wanted." Boom. The judge didn't even let it continue. She sighed, pinched the bridge of her nose, and looked directly at Diane's lawyer. "Counselor, is this really the best witness you could produce?" Diane's lawyer looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. "Your Honor, I've enough." She turned back to Lorraine. "Ms. Lorraine, unless you have actual evidence to support your claim, you are dismissed." Lorraine bolted from the stand. Diane, still fuming, hissed something under her breath. It didn't matter. The damage was done. But the drama wasn't over yet. The stolen necklace. As the judge prepared to make her ruling, Diane did something desperate. "Wait," she blurted out. "There's something else." The judge sighed. Ms. Diane, unless you have actual legal grounds for, she doesn't have all the jewelry. Diane snapped, pointing at me. She stole something from me. My head snapped toward her. What the hell are you talking about? She turned to her lawyer, yanked open her purse, and pulled out a printed photo. I couldn't see it from where I was sitting, but she shoved it at the judge like it was a smoking gun. The judge examined it. Her eyebrows rose. She turned to me. OP, do you own a vintage Tiffany necklace? I blinked. Yes. And do you recognize this photograph? I finally got a good look. It was me wearing the necklace. It was a screenshot from my Instagram. Private Instagram. My blood ran cold. I hadn't posted that picture publicly. Only close family could see it, which meant Diane had been stalking my page. But that wasn't the worst part. Diane smirked. That necklace, she said, was stolen from my mother's house after she passed. I demand it be returned immediately. I laughed. Not a chuckle. Not a scoff. A full, disbelieving laugh. I looked at her like she had lost her mind. You're kidding, right? That necklace was never part of the will, she continued, voice dripping with fake innocence. So if OP has it, it means she took it without permission. Her lawyer straightened up, suddenly seeing an angle. And just like that, I realized what she was doing. She couldn't win the case. But she was trying to get me for theft anyway. And for the first time, I actually felt a flicker of worry. Because while I knew the necklace was legally mine, I wasn't sure if I had the paperwork to prove it. Diane saw the hesitation in my face. And she smiled. The necklace accusation, I could feel my lawyer shifting beside me. He wasn't panicking, but he was definitely irritated. This was supposed to be over. Instead, Diane had just thrown a grenade into the case. The judge, already exhausted by Diane's antics, rubbed her temples. Ms. Diane, are you now accusing OP of theft? Yes, Diane said immediately. That necklace was never listed in the will. It wasn't in the appraisal documents either. If OP has it, she must have taken it without permission. I clenched my jaw. Because here's the thing, she wasn't entirely wrong. The necklace wasn't in the will. And I didn't have paperwork for it. Not because I stole it, but because Nana gave it to me personally. Years ago. She had taken it off her own neck, placed it in my hands, and said, I want you to have this. There was no written note. No legal record. Just her word and my memory. And now? That wasn't going to be good enough. Diane's gotcha moment. Diane was smirking now, sensing she had finally found a weak spot. I want it returned, she said, voice sweet but eyes full of malice. Or I want OP charged with theft. I glanced at my lawyer. He wasn't happy. Not because he thought I was guilty, but because this complicated everything. The judge exhaled slowly. Ms. Diane, you had ample opportunity to bring this up earlier. Why wait until now? Diane didn't even hesitate. Because I didn't realize OP had it until I saw that picture. She posted it after my mother died. That's when I knew she took it. The judge turned to me. OP, what do you have to say about this? I kept my voice steady. That necklace was a gift from my grandmother. She gave it to me years before she passed. Diane laughed. Oh, really? Do you have any proof of that? I gritted my teeth. No, I didn't. And she knew it. The witness I didn't expect. Just when I thought I was cornered, a voice spoke up from the back of the courtroom. Actually, she does. Everyone turned. And my dad stood up. Diane froze. I was just as shocked as she was. My dad had been sitting quietly through all of this, arms crossed, face unreadable. But now? He looked pissed. I was there when Mom gave her that necklace, he said, walking toward the front. She told me right after she gave it to OP. She said, I gave her the Tiffany necklace. She'll appreciate it more than Diane ever would. Diane's face twisted in rage. That's a lie, she snapped. You're just taking her side. Sit down. The judge cut in, her patience gone. Diane, shut up. The judge turned back to my dad. Mr. Mitchell, are you willing to testify under oath that your mother gave OP that necklace before her passing? Absolutely. The judge looked over at Diane's lawyer. Do you want to cross-examine? Diane's lawyer looked like he wanted to jump out a window. No, Your Honor. That was it. That was the moment Diane lost. But she wasn't done fighting. The fake new will, I thought that would be the final blow. That Diane would finally give up. But she wasn't done. Because 2 days later, my lawyer got an email. From Diane's lawyer. And attached was a scanned copy of a newly discovered, handwritten will. A will that claimed Nana had left everything to Diane, including the jewelry. I stared at the email, feeling sick. Because I knew exactly what this was. A forgery. And Diane was betting on the court being too busy to dig into it. The expert enters the picture. My lawyer wasted no time. He called in a handwriting expert, someone who specialized in detecting forged documents. The expert took one look at Diane's new will and started laughing. This isn't even a good forgery, he said. He pointed out the signature didn't match Nana's real one. The ink was too fresh, it hadn't even faded the way an old document would. The paper had modern watermarking, meaning it wasn't from years ago. In other words, Diane had faked an entire will. And she was about to get caught. The judge's final straw back in court, my lawyer presented the evidence. The handwriting expert explained everything. And when it was over, the judge turned to Diane with an expression so cold it could have frozen fire. "Ms. Diane," she said, voice deadly calm. "Are you aware that submitting a fraudulent will is a serious crime?" Diane's face went ghost white. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in this entire nightmare, she looked like she understood what she had done. But it was too late. Because the judge wasn't finished. The judge drops the hammer. The silence in the courtroom was suffocating. Diane sat there, frozen, her face pale as the weight of what she had just done settled in. The judge's voice was cold, controlled, and dangerous. "Ms. Diane, I want you to listen carefully. You just submitted a fraudulent document to this court. That is perjury. That is fraud. That is a felony." Diane's lawyer looked like he wanted to vanish into thin air. "Your Honor, my client was under the impression that the will was real." The judge cut him off with a glare. "Counselor, are you honestly trying to tell me that your client had no idea this was a forgery?" Diane suddenly snapped out of her shock. She grabbed at the fake will, shoving it toward the judge like it could still save her. "It's real," she shrieked. I found it in an old box. Mom must have written a new one and forgot to tell anyone." The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Diane, do you really want to continue lying to me? Because I will personally ensure this goes beyond a civil case." Diane's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Her lawyer, now desperate to salvage whatever was left, spoke quickly. "Your Honor, I strongly advise my client to drop all claims and accept the previous ruling." He turned to Diane. His meaning was clear: shut up before you go to jail. Diane's hands trembled. Her eyes darted around the room, as if searching for some escape, some excuse, some way out. But there wasn't one. Not this time. Not after everything she had done. The meltdown. And then, she broke. A guttural, angry sob burst from her mouth, raw and ugly. She shot up from her seat, knocking her chair over. "It was supposed to be mine." Her voice was shrill, hysterical. "She was my mother. I was her daughter. Why did she love you more?" I stiffened. The entire courtroom watched, stunned, as Diane finally cracked. She wasn't just mad about the jewelry. She was mad about everything. All the years she had neglected Nana. All the years she assumed that just being the daughter meant she deserved everything. All the years she took Nana for granted, only to realize, too late, that Nana had left her with nothing. Because she had never earned it. The judge's patience was gone. "Ms. Diane, sit down." Diane didn't. She turned on me instead, her rage spilling over. "You don't deserve it. You were just the grandkid. I was her blood. I should have gotten everything, not you." I stood up, my own anger finally breaking free. "Blood doesn't mean a thing when you act like you did." I snapped. "You never visited her. You never called her. You only showed up when you needed something. And now, you're throwing a tantrum because she saw you for who you really are." Diane flinched. I stepped closer, my voice lower but sharper. "She loved me because I loved her. Not because I wanted something from her. And that's why she left me the jewelry." Diane's lips trembled. For one split second, I saw it, guilt. But then she shook her head violently, shoving it down beneath layers of resentment and denial. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "It's not fair. It should have been mine." She looked at the judge, at her lawyer, at the courtroom full of people. And then, she ran. Literally. She turned and stormed out, sobbing. No dignity. No last words. Just defeat. The aftermath. There was a heavy pause after Diane disappeared. Then the judge sighed and picked up her gavel. "The original ruling stands. Case dismissed." She gave me a long, pointed look. "OP, I'd advise you to keep your jewelry somewhere safe." I nodded. I had already been planning to get a safety deposit box. Diane's lawyer looked like he had aged 10 years. He grabbed his briefcase and left without a word. And just like that, it was over. Family fallout. Diane's attempted forgery became the scandal of the family. People took sides. Some relatives made excuses for her. She was grieving. She was just emotional. She really thought she was supposed to inherit it. I shut all of them down with one sentence. She faked a will. That was it. That was the truth. She didn't just fight for the jewelry, she committed a crime to try and take it. Some family members cut her off entirely. Others kept their distance but didn't fully disown her. My dad? He never spoke to her again. Diane's life afterward. Diane never apologized. She went quiet for a while. But then, a few months later, she started playing the victim. She told people she was betrayed by her own family, that she was cheated out of her inheritance. Nobody bought it. She spiraled. She tried to sell her half of Nana's house, but no one wanted to buy a half-owned property. My dad ended up buying her out for way less than market value. She lost money. She lost respect. And worst of all, she lost any chance at redemption. Reflection. I still have Nana's jewelry. I keep it safe, locked away in a place only I can access. And every time I wear a piece, I remember her. Not Diane. Not the courtroom. Not the drama. Just her. Because in the end, the jewelry wasn't about money. It was about love. And that's something Diane never understood. Maybe she never will.